What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have some more Detroit Lions content to talk about as the first week of free agency is officially in the books. Today I wanted to go over the Detroit Lions early offseason moves, talk about every player that they have acquired so far, whether that be via free agency or via the trade market. Talk about each and every one of those individual players, give a grade to the signing or the trade, and of course talk about where that leaves the Lions right now as far as cap space and some of the other positions they may still be looking to fill out before the draft rolls around. Now, before we get into the video and before we start talking about this early Detroit Lions offseason, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes just 2 seconds out of your day to do so. It's quick, free, and easy. There is literally no downside to it, and you would be helping the channel and you'd be helping me out more than you could possibly know. So if you could take those 2 seconds to just hit the like and the subscribe button, I'd be greatly appreciative for it. But with all of that being said, and without any further ado, let's get right into talking about the Detroit Lions early offseason and where it leaves the Detroit Lions going forward. Now, although it is in the early stages of the offseason, the Detroit Lions have seen a lot of change in a very short amount of time. This free agent class especially saw 8 different starters for the Detroit Lions leave, including guys like Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, Everson Griffin, Deron Harmon, Matt Prater, and many more starters and role players that were very impactful to the success that the Lions saw a season ago. So obviously, with that being the case, with all these different free agents and all of these starters and role players leaving the team, the Lions are going through a lot of change and they're going to experience a lot of differences between this season and last season. Now, looking at some of the early signings the Lions have made this offseason, obviously these are not all of the signings the Lions will be making, but these are just the ones that they have made so far. Starting with the first signing of the offseason, we will be taking a look at wide receiver Tyrell Williams. Now, Tyrell Williams and the Detroit Lions agreed on a 1-year, $3 million contract. $3 million are guaranteed, and I believe he can earn upwards of $6 million with incentives and playing bonuses. I would give this signing a B+. I think this is a really good replacement for the Detroit Lions. I think that Tyrell Williams is going to come in and really be a replacement for Marvin Jones. He's very similarly sized to Marvin Jones, except he's a little faster. He creates better separation and is a little bit more consistent with his catching. His catching and his drop percentage has gone down every single season. His catching percentage has gone up every single season he's been in the NFL. He's had 1,000 yards in the NFL before. He's a very solid wide receiver, and although some people may not agree with this, he can very realistically be your wide receiver 1. And if he ends up being the Lions wide receiver 1 this season, I would be feeling very comfortable with it, and especially with it being only a 1-year, $3 million contract. We are getting far more value out of Tyrell Williams than what the contract may suggest. So I was a big fan of this signing from the beginning, and the more I look at it and the more I kind of get to see the vision that the Lions are trying to build, I kind of get to see the vision and the outline that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have for this team. I really like the early signing of Tyrell Williams to come in and likely be the wide receiver 1 going into the 2021 season. Moving on to the second signing of free agency this offseason, the Detroit Lions decided to part ways with Jesse James and actually come up with a replacement very quickly, as they agreed to terms with tight end Josh Hill on a 1-year, $1 million contract. Now, Josh Hill's contract will, as I said, cost the Lions about $1 million, just under $1 million in cap space this season. Overall, I would give this signing about a B-. I think this is an okay signing for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, 1 year, just under $1 million in cap space being used. A very good contract, not a lot of money being spent. However, Josh Hill is really just a blocking tight end, and although he's a good blocking tight end. I've seen a lot of really good blocking from him. I think he can be a really good weapon on this Lions offensive line, not part of the line, but being next to the offensive line, being that inline blocker that a traditional tight end is supposed to be. I think that and TJ Hawkinson are two very good blocking tight ends that should really help open up holes in the run game. It should help the Lions set the edge in the run game if they want to get DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson, or Jamaal Williams out on the edge. I think Josh Hill will be a big part in doing so. I think that Josh Hill will be a very good blocker for the Detroit Lions. My only real concern and my only real backtrack to this signing is the fact that he's not really a receiving threat. He's not really ever going to have a big receiving game for the Detroit Lions, just like he never really had a big receiving game for the New Orleans Saints. However, I do think this is an okay signing. I'm far from mad about this signing. As I said, very small contract and a very good blocker. Just a guy that's not really going to be able to put up a lot of stats or be kind of the flashy guy on the field, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Just I would like to see the Lions at least one more receiving threat for the tight end position to kind of pair with TJ Hawkinson, especially if Hunter Bryant does struggle with injuries yet again. Now moving on to the third signing of the offseason, we have Jamaal Williams, the running back who I just previously mentioned. Now Jamaal Williams is one of my favorite signings this offseason. I would give this one, just like Tyrell Williams, I will be grading this at a B+. We signed him to a 2-year up to $7.5 million on the contract, with that including incentives and with that including playing bonuses and things like that. He can earn upwards of $7.5 million throughout his 2 years that he is signed in the Motor City. I'm a big fan of Jamaal Williams. I think he's a very powerful running back. We've played him several times as the Detroit Lions, and the Lions could never really seem to stop him no matter what they tried to do. I mean, he just seemed to push right through a bunch of our Lions defenders each and every play, each and every opportunity he got. And he's just a very good running back. He's not going to break off an 80-yard touchdown. He doesn't have elite speed, elite explosiveness, or anything like that, but he is a very powerful running back. He falls forward. He kind of falls through contact very, very well. And the one thing I like the most about Jamaal Williams is he actually brings a lot of energy on the locker room and on the field. He's a good football player, but I think one of the things he brings that is a little less mentioned and a little less talked about is just the energy and the passion he brings. The energy and passion he has for the game of football is going to be infectious in the locker room. I mean, you see him on game day dancing on the field, dancing in the locker room, kind of being that voice in the locker room, that energetic, the guy that just kind of gets people ready, gets people energized for the football game. And that's not a guy that I think the Lions had in the locker room before Jamaal Williams. So that is another bonus to signing him. Again, one of my favorite free agent signings this offseason. I would give it a B+ grade. Now, the Lions also went out and signed a second Green Bay Packers member as they decided to go out and sign the Green Bay Packers backup quarterback in Tim Boyle. Now, they signed Tim Boyle to a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. I would give this one a B. Pretty much most of my grades for this offseason so far are in that B+ to B- range. I don't think there's anything really wrong with a lot of the Lions signings. However, I don't think there's anything extraordinary. I don't think there's anything exceptional about all of the signings either. And that goes for Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle should be a solid backup quarterback in the Motor City. Obviously learned under Aaron Rodgers for the past couple of years. Looked okay in a lot of his preseason games. Looked pretty solid against backup competition and against backup defenses. I think if he needed to step in for a couple of plays, if he needed to step in for like a half or so, I think he could be okay as the Lions backup. Again, very solid contract. Only 1 year, $2.5 million. I think it's an upgrade at the backup quarterback position from both a talent perspective. I think Tim Boyle is a better quarterback than what we were getting in Chase Daniel. And obviously the contract is better as the cap hit is nowhere near as high as it was for Chase Daniels. I would give this signing a B. I think it's an upgrade from both the contract and the talent perspective for our backup quarterback. However, as I said, there's nothing really exceptional about this pickup. There's nothing really extraordinary or super special about picking up Tim Boyle to be the backup quarterback. Moving on to the next player the Detroit Lions have signed, the second to last player the Lions have signed from free agency thus far. That would be the Matt Prater replacement in Randy Bullock. Randy Bullock was signed to a 1-year, $1.5 million contract. I give this one a B as well. I think he's going to be a very solid, very consistent kicker for the Detroit Lions. I don't see anything special in Randy Bullock. He's been a very long-time NFL veteran. He's been consistent throughout his NFL career. We kind of know what we're getting with him. We're getting a guy that's going to be very consistent, a guy that's going to make you a lot of field goals at a very high percentage, and really he's going to put a lot of points on the board for your team over the year, obviously with extra points and field goals and all of those things. He's going to be very consistent for your football team, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to hit that 59, 60-yard game-winning field goal like we were getting with Matt Prater. Not to say he can't hit game winners, not to say he can't be clutch in big moments. He just doesn't quite have the biggest leg like Matt Prater had, which is a little bit of a drawback for me. However, I think this is still a very, very solid signing for the Detroit Lions, which is why I give it a B. And then the final free agent that the Lions have brought in so far is defensive end Charles Harris. Now, Charles Harris is a former first-round pick. He's been a okay player in the NFL. He's really not lived up to that first-round hype, hasn't really lived up to that first-round projection that he was supposed to be. He hasn't really lived up to the hype that he was supposed to when coming out of the NFL draft and when being a first-round pick. However, he was signed to a contract, a one-year deal that he can earn upwards of $1.75 million. Again, I give this a B, more so because the contract is really small. The contract is a low-risk, high-reward, and I think that our new defensive lines coach is going to really like to work with Charles Harris. I think he's a guy that still has a lot of potential, a guy that our new defensive line coach can definitely mold and get that, get the best out of him. I think that we could definitely see a resurgence for Charles Harris. I think we could definitely see a scenario where our new defensive line coach really kind of pulls all that potential out and really puts all that potential to use and really lets Charles Harris show what he's capable of, really lets Charles Harris kind of develop, really helps him develop into the player he was supposed to be when he was drafted in the 2017 NFL draft. I give this draft pick a B as well, more so because it is a low risk, high reward kind of a deal. Very similarly to all of these deals, a lot of them are one-year deals. Only Jamaal Williams got a 2-year contract. Everybody else got 1 year on a prove-it deal. I like the way the Lions are structuring these contracts. Again, very similarly to a lot of the other guys, I give a lot of these guys B pluses to B minuses. There's nothing really for me to be mad about in this free agent class so far. There's nothing really all that big or all that flashy about these players. And again, it's just they're solid NFL players that should be able to do their job very, very well. I also forgot just now, I'm thinking about this right on the spot, Brashad Perryman is also a new member of the Detroit Lions wide receiving core. His contract is not a bad one either. I would give him a B plus as well. I think we're not paying a lot of money. I believe it's just a 1 year, $3 million deal. It's really good value for a guy like Brashad Perryman, especially for a guy that's going to bring you a lot of speed, is going to bring you some separation, is going to be a consistent 500-600 yard wide receiver, can be your wide receiver too, can be relatively productive in a system for you. And I think him and Tyrell Williams on the boundaries could be a pretty good 1-2 combination for the Detroit Lions this year at wide receiver. Moving on to the trades that the Lions have made this offseason, I wanted to include the trades as well because obviously they are having one of the biggest, if not the biggest, effect on this team right now. The Lions have made 2 trades this offseason if you've not been keeping up. The Lions, first off, just recently traded a 2023 7th round pick in order to acquire 31-year-old defensive tackle Michael Brockers. I give this pickup an A. I mean, a 2023 7th round pick is basically the least valuable thing you can give away as an NFL organization. Like a 7th round pick 3 drafts from now is very, very unvaluable to NFL teams. And Michael Brockers also restructured his contract when he got here, opening up even more cap space for the Detroit Lions. Michael Brockers should be a starter for this Lions defensive line for at least 2 more seasons. He has the talent to be good. He still has a lot of juice, still has a lot of gas left in the tank. Although he is 31 years old, I still think he'll be a relatively high-level starter for the Lions for the next 2 seasons. And as I said, the value that we gave up to get him was incredibly low, as well as him restructuring his contract even allowed the Lions to open up more cap space after the trade was made. Now, the second trade that was made this offseason and the first trade and the first big move of the Brad Holmes era was the trading of Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford a few months ago was traded to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for starting quarterback Jared Goff, a 2021 third-round pick, a 2022 first-round pick, as well as a 2023 first-round pick. Now, this trade has set the Lions up in tremendous spots. It has put the Lions in a very, very good position moving forward. They have their starting quarterback for at least a season, if not 2. They have 4 first-round picks at the minimum in the next 2 draft classes alone, in the 2022 and the 2023 draft class alone. That number could rise. That number could increase even if the Detroit Lions decide to trade down again, especially if the Lions look to trade away their 7th overall pick. They could very easily acquire another first for next year, giving them 5 in those 2 seasons and 5 in those 2 draft classes. Overall, I think this was a very good trade. This was probably one of the best trades in Lions history, to be totally honest. I mean, I'd give this an A+. There is really no downside to this trade. I mean, the contract for Jared Goff is a little iffy, but the value we got out of a 31-year-old Matthew Stafford was incredible, and I was incredibly happy with this pickup and incredibly happy with this trade. As I said, it sets the Lions up in tremendous situations and puts the Lions in a very, very good spot moving forward for this rebuild, this retool, and to give the Lions the most competitive roster moving forward. With all of these moves, with all of these free agent signings and all of these trades, according to Over the Cap, the Detroit Lions are left with just over $8 million left in cap space. With all the cuts, with all the releases that have been used up so far, the Detroit Lions, according again to Over the Cap, have about $8 million left in cap space, just a little bit more than $8 million. Now, the Detroit Lions, I do not believe are done in free agency. I think there's a couple more positions you could still see them go after. I would like to see the Detroit Lions bring in at least one linebacker. I'd like to see them bring in at least one secondary player, whether that be a safety like Damontae Kazee, who they brought in, or AJ Boye, who has seen a lot of interest and is rumored to be interested in by the Detroit Lions. I'd like to see them bring at least one more secondary player in, whether that be a cornerback or a safety. I'd like to see at least one linebacker, and I'd like to see at least one offensive lineman. I'd like to see either a right guard or a right tackle to really fill out one of those 2 question marks that still is there and still applies to the offensive line. Although the first wave of free agency is over, although a lot of the big names are off the board, there are still a lot of talented guys, and there is still a lot of talent left out there in the free agent market. You look at the linebacker options, you have guys like Eric Wilson, who I'm incredibly high on. You have guys like Quan Alexander, who may be a little bit more expensive, but a guy that's going to give you a really, really good talent at the linebacker position. Or if you want to go a little cheaper, you have a guy like Deion Buchanan, who can still make you a lot of tackles, can still fly around the field, but won't be quite as expensive as a guy like Eric Wilson and Quan Alexander. At the O-line, there's a lot of offensive linemen available still. You have guys like Mitchell Schwartz, you have guys like Alejandro Villanueva, Russell Okung, who've all played at a very high Pro Bowl level for many, many years in the NFL, and although they may not be the players they were a couple of years ago, would still be able to very, very easily lock down that right side of the offensive line. Those 3 are all tackles. However, there are a few guards available as well, and there are still a lot of talented guys on the offensive line that the Lions could look to bring in to solidify that right tackle and right guard position to give the Lions a very solid and very complete offensive line moving forward and moving into the next couple of seasons. And then, of course, moving on to the secondary, there's a lot of secondary talent left. As I mentioned earlier, Damontae Kazee was brought in by the Detroit Lions for a visit and for a workout. I believe he's going over to Dallas for another workout and another interview. However, the Lions do have quite a bit of interest in him still. Quentin Dunbar is still on the market. Malik Hooker is still on the market. Adoree Jackson is still on the free agent market. So there's a lot of good secondary talent out there as well. And you may be saying, well, what can the Lions really get with $8 million? I mean, you can realistically still sign 2 or 3 more free agents, especially if you backload some of their contracts to next season or 2 seasons down the road when the Trey Flowers contract is off the books, when the Matthew Stafford dead cap is gone. Like, there is going to be a lot of money cleared up in the next couple of years. So you can still bring in free agents and backload their contracts so that they don't really have a huge cap hit until the 2022 or 2023 season, when you have more flexibility to deal with larger cap numbers, as I said, with Trey Flowers and Matthew Stafford's contracts both being off the books by that time. With all of that being said, that is kind of the first recap of the offseason so far. As I said, it's very early in the offseason. It's very early in the free agent market. There's a lot of talent still left out there, and there's a lot of guys that are still looking for starting jobs and in positions to compete on for many NFL teams. And I think the Detroit Lions are not done. I think we still see the Detroit Lions bring in 2, 3 more free agents potentially. I'm hoping a linebacker, an offensive lineman, and maybe even a secondary player. If we could bring in one of those guys at each and every one of those positions, I would consider this a very, very successful offseason for the Detroit Lions. And even if they don't, even if the Lions sit tight, and even if the Lions sit and don't do anything else this offseason until the NFL draft, I still don't think this offseason was a failure, and I was actually very happy with what I've seen so far from this Lions front office. They're not making a lot of flashy trades. They're not making a lot of big name hires. They're not making a lot of big contracts and giving away big contracts to players that don't deserve it. They're staying patient. They're getting the guys that they want. They're getting guys that they feel will fit their system. They're getting guys that they think will be the best fit for the Detroit Lions versus necessarily the best talent on the board. And I really like the way that Brad Holmes is constructing this team. I really like the way that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are putting this team together, and I really like the direction that it seems the Detroit Lions are looking to go. With all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this offseason so far. What do you think about the free agent acquisitions? What do you think about the new players that are here in the Detroit Lions? And what would you grade this offseason if it were to end today? Let me know that down in the comments below. I'd be very, very interested to hear what you guys think about the offseason moves so far. But until then, that is all I got for you guys today. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, if there's another signing, a trade, a release, or any more rumors to come out about our Detroit Lions, I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so very much for watching the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. But until then, that's all I got for you guys right now. Of course, as always, go Lions.